My name is Erica and I'm with UMBC Recreation. If you are new to this class or yoga, it is Vinyasa based. So you'll notice a flow-like movement to our poses. We often tie the movement in with our breath, inhaling and exhaling to take us in and out of poses. I won't just call out poses and expect you to know where we're headed. I will build us up into alignment, especially our first few times through the pose. And then as we go on, I'll give less direction and we'll focus more on the flow than what we're doing with our bodies. Hopefully that's the goal. I want to remind everyone to always listen to your body throughout the practice. Take breaks if you need to. If something doesn't feel right in your body, you know you best. You don't have to practice that pose, and always jump back in when you're ready. And always make sure to check with the doctor before you start a new exercise plan. Today we're going to get started laying flat on our bellies with your face facing the front of the mat. Come all the way down to the belly. Turning your head to one side so you can rest on your cheek. Arms are along the sides of the body, palms face up towards the ceiling. Heels fall out away from one another. Wiggle the hips a little bit, help release the low back, and wiggle the shoulders away from the ears. And then just hang as heavy as you can onto the floor, let everything go. And just breathe. Starting out nice and slow. Allowing the low back to find some release with the heels falling away from one another. Stretching the neck with our head turned to one side. Releasing any tension in the body with the breath. If you'd like to create a little more sensation in the neck, turn your head so you're resting more on your ear than you are your cheek. Maybe closing the eyes if they're not already. Keeping that focus inward. Yoga practice is not just about stretching the body and the movements we put in the body. It's a time for self-reflection and a time for getting to know ourselves better as well. Gently turn your head to the opposite side, starting on your cheek first. Moving to the ear if you did so on the opposite side. If you feel compelled to put a little more movement in the start of your practice, maybe bend the knees and windshield wiper their feet, letting them fall side to side, helping to relieve any tension in the low back a little more. If the feet are swaying side to side, unbend the knees, lowering feet down to the floor. And bringing the arms underneath the head, bending the elbows, resting chin on the arms. Bending the right knee into frog, keeping the knee tracking along the floor. Drawing the knee up closer towards the face. The more you draw the knee up towards the face and away from the body, the more sensation you'll create in the hip. So play around with the position of your knee a bit, see what's comfortable for you. We're gonna hang out for about a minute on each side here. Really let some tension in our hips release. Give some time for that tension to release. If it's more comfortable for the head or the neck to turn your head to one side, you can do that. Keep your focus on your breath. sensation changes as we're holding the pose. You can adjust your knee as we go, maybe creating a little more or a little less. Slowly straighten the leg so it can meet the left. Then slowly bend the left knee into frog. Playing around with the adjustment of the knee, finding that space that works for you. And hanging out for a few rounds of breath there. If your head was turned to one side, try turning it to the opposite side. Trying to hang as heavy as you can onto your mat. Slowly straighten the leg to meet the right. Place hands underneath your shoulders, chin to the mat, elbows up to the ceiling. Tops of feet to mat. Press the front point of your hips into the mat. Draw your belly in towards your spine. Using the strength of your core, start to lift your chest off the mat. Shoulders draw behind the heart as if they want to touch one another. Chin is lifted from the chest. We're holding here, core engaged. Deep breaths into the chest. Then releasing, slowly letting the chest and chin come down to the floor. Draw breath in through the nose, drawing belly in, lifting chest, baby cobra. Exhaling, chest to floor. Inhale, chest, baby cobra. Exhale, chest to floor. Last time, lifting the chest up, then bringing elbows to the mat for support into Sphinx pose. Elbows under shoulders, palms face down to the floor. Separate your legs to mat with distance apart, wiggling the hips, releasing low back. Find an opening from the front of the chest. Actively press down into the elbows, gently pressing back on the elbows, lifting the chest a bit more, gazing up to ceiling. Holding here. Strengthening our core, opening the front of our chest, increasing our lung capacity. Bend the right knee, pointing the toes, actively pressing the toes towards the head. So stretching the front of the thigh and the hip flexor here, still opening from the front of the chest. Then releasing the leg down to the mat. Bending left knee, actively pressing the toes towards the head, lifting from the chest, strengthening our core. Nice stretch on the front side of the body, then release the leg down to the mat. Place your hands back under shoulders, chest down to floor. Press yourself into tabletop on your hands and your knees stacked under the hips and wrists stacked under the shoulders. Slowly round your spine into cat pose, tucking chin to chest, drawing belly close to body. Then release, finding a lift and an arch in the spine into cow, gazing up to ceiling, letting belly hang. Again, rounding spine, chin to chest, lifting and arching into cow. A few more times at your own pace. Inhaling to lift and arch. Exhaling to round the spine. And find stillness in a tabletop position. Lift up to the tips of your fingers. Extend your right leg behind you, point through the toes, heel in line with hip. Tabletop crunch, knee to chest, around the spine, draw the belly in, and step or place the foot into lunge. Drawing and creating some strength in our core here. Ankle right below the knee. Draw the breath in through the nose as you lift both arms overhead. Pause and exhale here. Finding length through the sides of the body, out through crown of head, squaring shoulders away from the ears. Core is engaged. Thighs are energetically drawing towards one another for stability. As you exhale, twist from the belly towards the long side of your mat, turning to the right, lowering arms down at your sides. Drawing breath in through the nose, unwinding, bringing arms back overhead. Exhaling, twisting to opposite side, lowering arms down at your sides. Inhaling, both arms up. Exhaling, fingertips to mat. Step back into a tabletop position. Stay up on the tips of the fingers. Extend left leg behind you, heel in line with hip. Tabletop crunch, engage your core, lift the knee high, step or place the foot into lunge, foot between the hands. Breathe in through the nose, lifting both arms overhead and exhaling at the top. Find the length through the body, engage the core. As you exhale, twisting to the left, lowering arms down at your sides. Inhaling, arms overhead. Exhaling, twisting to the right. Inhaling, arms overhead. Exhale, fingertips to floor. Step back in a tabletop position. Lift your left arm up to the ceiling, reach through the tips of your fingers and thread the needle, passing the raised arm through to the right side of the mat, lowering down to the shoulder. Relaxing the right shoulder and the elbow. Opening the sides of the body. Getting a deeper spinal twist. Steady your right hand on the mat, press yourself back to a tabletop position. Inhale to lift the right arm to the ceiling. Exhale to thread the needle, passing it through to the left, dropping down to shoulder and cheek. Left hand slowly presses you back to tabletop. Send the hips back to the heels into child's pose, resting forehead to mat, extending arms down mat. Separating the knees, making enough space for your belly. Taking a few breaths here. This is your rest position throughout the class. You're welcome to come to this position at any time, whether I cue it or not. If you're not quite comfortable on the knees or the hips, raise back to the knees, keeping elbows to mat into puppy pose, and let the head hang heavy. Take a few deep breaths here, a few more to finish the warm-up, feeling the sides of the body, the back side of the body. Then on your next deep inhale, rise to a tabletop position. Spread the fingers nice and wide, distribute the weight evenly through the hands, through the tips of the fingers, and tuck toes onto the mat. Lift the knees off the mat and send the hips to the ceiling into down dog, gazing between the feet. Keeping the knees bent for a moment here, focusing on the length of the spine, pressing firmly into pointer finger and the thumb, before straightening the legs and pressing the heels towards the floor. Keeping the hips reaching towards the ceiling, low belly drawing in. Straightening the legs is creating a little too much sensation. You can pedal the feet, bending one knee at a time and switching to the other, or keeping the knees completely bent. Play around, see what works for you, find your breath. Look forward, shift the weight forward, step or place your right foot into lunge, lifting up to the tips of the fingers, right knee above the ankle. Step up to half lift, feet hips width distance apart, back is flat, hands to shins. Lower to forward fold, gently bend the knees, send the chest towards the floor, belly close to thighs, arms and head reach towards the floor. Tuck your chin in towards your chest, and one vertebrae at a time, round your spine up to a standing position. Letting your chin come up from the chest very last, until you're in a nice, tall, standing position. Rooting down through your feet, relaxing shoulders down the back. Lift both arms overhead, and bend the elbows into goddess arms, palms face forward, elbows in line with the shoulders. Opening the front of the chest, toning the arms and shoulders here. Remove any curve from the low back by sending tailbone long to the floor, engaging your core, letting the openness and any rounding come from the top of the chest. Extend both arms overhead, lengthen the spine, and lower to forward fold, bringing hands together down through heart center. Hinging forward from the hips, belly touches thighs, head hangs heavy. Rise half lift, flatten your back. Step your right foot back into lunge. On the ball of the foot, left knee is stacked right over the ankle. Drop the knee down to the mat and uncurl the toes, top of foot to mat. Breath in through the nose, lifting both arms overhead. Deep breath. Exhale out through the mouth, fingertips return to mat. Step back into a tabletop position, hands flat to mat. Lean forward into chaturanga, shoulders past the wrist, bending the elbows, keeping them close to the body, lowering chest down to mat, and then the hips. If that creates too much sensation in the wrist or the arms, you can get down to your belly anyway, and it's fine with me. Lift the chest into baby cobra. Then press into child's pose, hips to heels and forehead to mat. Deep breaths here. Rise to a tabletop position. Tuck toes onto mat. Send the hips up to the ceiling with knees bent into downward facing dog. And then extending into whichever variation you're choosing to practice today, whether legs are straight or bent. Deepening the breath. Looking forward, stepping or placing left foot into lunge, lifting up to tips of fingers. Step up to half lift, flatten your back, hands to shins. Lower to forward fold, belly comes down to the thighs. Tuck chin in towards the chest and slowly round the spine up to a standing position. Once you make it up, bring the arms back overhead. And lower to forward fold, belly comes down to thighs, Head hangs to floor. Rise half lift, flat in the back. Step your left foot back into a lunge on the ball of the foot. Lower the knee to the mat and uncurl the toes. Deep breath in through the nose, lift the arms overhead. Exhale out through the mouth, fingertips to floor. Step back into a tabletop position and plant the hands flat to mat. Lean forward for chaturanga, shoulders past the wrists, bend the elbows, lowering chest to floor and then the hips. Deep breath in through the nose, lifting the chest to baby cobra. Find length on the back side of the neck. And exhale to child's pose, hips to heels. Taking a few breaths here. Slowly inhale as you rise to tabletop and exhale into downward facing dogs, hips up to the ceiling. Deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. In through nose, out through mouth. Step your right foot into a lunge position. Inhale as you step up to half lift, flat in the back. Exhale to forward fold, belly to thighs. Slowly rise to standing as you inhale and exhale at the top. Take a moment, ground yourself, lengthen the spine. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, goddess arms, elbows bend in line with the shoulders, holding here. Don't hold the breath. Open through the front of the chest. Inhale, extend the arms overhead. Exhale, forward fold, belly to thighs. Rise to half lift. Step your right foot back into a lunge position. Left knee stacked over the ankle. Hands come to the forward thigh. Arms extend overhead, high lunge. Drawing the shoulders or the arms back towards the ears. Keeping hips square towards the front of the mat, core is engaged. Open to 5-pointed star, facing the right side of the mat, lowering arms down to shoulder height, then bringing hands to the hips. Adjust your feet so you're standing firmly on the inner and outer ball and inner and outer heel. Then turn the toes away from one another. And bend the knees into goddess pose, stacking the knees over the ankles, sending hips down towards the floor. Knees are drawing back towards the sides of the body, keeping the hips open. That means the knees don't bend as much. That's okay. Find what works for you. We're lengthening the spine, opening the hips, strengthening the legs, finding the breath. Optional to find goddess arms, adding a little work in for the shoulders. We'll straighten the legs and turn the toes to face forward. Bring hands to hips if they're not there already. Hinge forward from the hips, bringing fingertips below the face, bending the knees if you need to. Walk into a lunge position, turning your left foot to face the front of the mat, walking the hands to frame the foot, lifting right heel off the mat. Step back into a plank position and drop the knees to tabletop. Lean forward, chaturanga, bending the elbows, keeping them close to the body. Inhale, lifting chest, baby cobra. Exhale to child's pose, hips to heels. Few breaths here. Focus on the breath. Inhaling the breath up the spine and exhaling the breath down the spine. Next, inhale, return to tabletop. Exhale, lifts the hips to downward facing dog. Give me another breath or two here, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Step your left foot into lunge. Inhaling as you step up to half lift. Exhaling, lower to forward fold. Rounding the spine up to standing as we draw the breath in. Exhaling at the top, taking a moment here to ground ourselves, finding length through the spine. Next inhale, lifts the arms overhead. Exhale, goddess arms, elbows bend. Holding here, don't hold the breath. Opening comes from the front of the chest. Core is engaged. Inhale, straighten the arms overhead, look up. Exhale, forward fold, belly down to thighs. Inhale, half lift. Step your left foot back into lunge. Place your hands on your forward thigh, extend the arms overhead, high lunge. Right knee is stacked right over the ankle. Core is engaged. Open a 5-pointed star facing the left side of your mat, arms at shoulder height, feet forward, hands to hips. Find a nice solid stance with your feet and turn the toes away from one another. Exhale into goddess pose, knees stacking over the ankles, hips down to floor. Optional to lift to goddess arms. Couple more breaths. Make them nice and deep and meaningful. On next inhale, straighten the legs, bring hands to hips. If they're not there already, turn the feet forward. Inch forward from the hips, fingertips to floor. Walk into lunge, right foot turns forward, left heel lifts off the mat. Step back to plank position. Lower knees to tabletop. Exhale as you find chaturanga. All the way down. Inhale, baby cobra. Exhale, child's pose. And focus returns to the breath. Inhaling all the way to the crown of the head. Exhaling all the way down to the tailbone. Inhaling, rising to tabletop. Exhaling, downward facing dog. Last down dog of the class. If you're familiar with other variations that you'd like to get into, you're more than welcome to do that now. You can skip this down dog and hang out in child's pose instead. Take a few more rounds of breath wherever you're at. And step your right foot into lunge, giving everyone a moment to get there. Stepping up to half lift when you're ready, breathing in. Exhaling, forward fold, belly to thighs. Take a moment or two here. Most of the weight's in the balls of the feet. Shake the head yes and no a few times. Help letting the neck let go. Tuck your chin towards your chest and start to round your spine a little slower this time, all the way up to a standing position. Giving me a deep breath in through your nose, lifting arms out at your sides, up overhead. Exhale, goddess arms, bending the elbows. Inhale, arms extend overhead. Exhale, arms out wide at your side. One more time, breath in, arms up. Exhale, goddess arms. Inhale, arms up. Exhale, arms swoop down wide into forward fold, belly to thighs. Rise, half lift, flatten your back. Step back into a plank position, and we'll hold here for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Slowly make your way down to your belly. Turning your head to one side, resting on the cheek, arms along the sides of the body. Wiggling shoulders away from ears, let the heels fall out. Take a deep breath in through your nose, and as you exhale out through your mouth, let everything go onto the mat. Hanging as heavy as you can onto the floor. Slowly turn your head to the opposite side, wiggling those shoulders away from the ears a little more. Place your hands underneath your shoulders, bring your chin to the mat, and press yourself into child's pose, hips to heels. Optional to try rounded child's pose this time. Arms along sides of body, palms face up to ceiling, shoulders rolling down to the floor. Slowly make your way to a seated position, sitting in the center of your mat with your legs extended forward. Once you're seated, bend your right knee, placing your foot to the mat. Left hand holds onto the outside of the leg. Free hand, fingertips to the floor directly behind you, twisting your belly to turn towards the long side of your mat, gazing out over right shoulder. If you want a little more compression, maybe left arm wraps on and hugs the right leg. As you inhale, you lengthen the spine towards the ceiling. On the exhale, maybe belly opens to twist a little more. Take a deep breath in through your nose. As you exhale, unwind, face forward, straightening the leg onto the mat. Left knee bends, foot to floor. Right hand holds onto the outside of the leg. Find some length, open the twist, free hand directly behind you. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale to twist. Deep breath in through the nose. Exhale to unwind and face forward. Straighten the leg. Bend both knees, placing the feet on the floor, hands behind the thighs. And slowly lower yourself down till you're flat on your back. Drawing both knees in towards your chest, feet side by side. Interlacing the fingers, holding below the knees, drawing thighs close to body. If that's uncomfortable on your knees, you can hold on to the back of the thighs instead. Everyone gently tuck your chin in towards your chest, lengthen the back side of the neck. Decompressing the neck by tucking the chin in towards the chest, helping to decompress the low spine by finding some length there, rounding the low back. Place your hands on the back side of your thighs and extend your legs up to the ceiling into an inversion. Hands on the back of the thighs for support. We'll hold here for about 45 seconds. A little tingliness in the toes is okay as fresh oxygenated blood runs towards our heads. But if the legs start to feel a bit tired, you can draw the knees in towards the chest, but keep the heels elevated. Maybe the eyes close here and you focus on the breath. As our inversion helps to calm our nervous system as we slow down our practice. Draw the knees back into the body, heels lower down towards the glutes. Release your arms to the floor at shoulder height, palms face up. Knees fall to the right into reclined spinal twist and head turns to the left. If the knees don't touch down towards the floor or each other and you want a little support, you can use the right hand underneath the legs. Or maybe lower the knees away from the hand and find some ease that way if you need it. Try closing the eyes, bringing your attention back to your breath. Start to relax the muscles around the brow and the eyes. If you're new to yoga, we end the practice with a final rest period. We lay flat on our back for about 2 to 3 minutes. We remain still with our eyes closed, and we use that time to absorb the benefits of our practice and give a little time for self-reflection. And this is our last pose before our final resting pose. Slowly draw the knees back into the center of the chest and let them fall over to the left. Head turns to the right, making any adjustments you need to if you did so on the opposite side. Following the pattern of your breath. Slowly draw the knees back to the center of your chest, holding onto the back of the thighs or below the knees, drawing thighs close to body. Take a deep breath in through your nose, hold the breath at the top, lift your head to meet your knees and squeeze your body into a tight little ball. Then exhale, releasing to lay flat on your mat into final resting pose by separating the legs and arms nice and wide, taking up as much space as you can. Letting the toes fall away from one another. Letting the body hang heavy onto the mat. Starting at your toes, taking a deep breath in, drawing the breath up the body all the way to the crown of your head. Exhaling all the way back down the body to the tips of the toes. And resume your normal pattern of breath. Following either the rise or the fall of your chest. If the focus has wandered, bring your attention back to your breath. Slowly start to deepen your breath. Start to wiggle your fingers and your toes, slowly welcoming movement back into your body. And gently rolling over to the right side of your body, taking a moment of stillness on your side, using your arm as a pillow to support your head. Keeping your eyes closed or your gaze lowered to the floor, slowly press yourself up into any comfortable seated position. As always, to finish class, we'll take 3 cleansing breaths together as one, breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. Today we'll take a 3-part breath, breaking the inhale into 3 parts, filling belly first, then the ribs, then the chest, then exhaling from the mouth, from the rib, or from the chest, from the ribs, then from the belly. So that we're all together on the same breath, let's find an exhale, releasing all the breath we have out of the body. Inhaling into the belly, into ribs, into chest, exhaling chest, exhaling ribs, and then belly. Breath into belly for 2, into ribs, into chest, exhale chest, ribs, and belly. Last breath into the belly, into the ribs, into chest, and exhale, exhale, and exhale. take a quick moment to thank yourself for taking time for your day, for yourself, for this practice. I'd like to thank you as well for letting me lead you on this practice. There is a light that exists within me that honors and respects the light that exists within each and every one of you. Thanks so much for practicing with me today. I hope you enjoyed the class. If you did, there's a new version of this class that is aired every Thursday. If you like my style, but you're looking for something a little more challenging, I release a core yoga class that is aired every Sunday. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again for joining me. See you next time.